The next one, I think, is something that parishes can easily do, and it has a profound impact on the life of our parishes. Can you get 50% of your identifiable givers using, I guess you call it pre-authorized debit? In our diocese, we aim for this amount, and those who, and I'm a terrific supporter of using this way of giving to support the life and ministry of our churches. I think it's good theology, quite frankly. The idea of giving your first fruits and not necessarily what's left over. The idea that we prayerfully consider the gift that we're going to make to our church, and we set that aside from the very beginning. We make a commitment that this is what's going to go to support ministry in our church, irrespective of whether or not I'm there on a Sunday. That gift will be made to the church, whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm sick, whether I've taken the week off, whether I'm away on business, whether I'm away visiting family. The church is going to get that gift regardless. And in your diocese, you have about 1,200 people using pre-authorized debit. The average gift through pre-authorized debit in the diocese is $2,250. So the average gift in total in the diocese is just over $1,500. But if you're going to give through pre-authorized debit, you're giving 50% more to the life of your church. And that's very powerful. That tells me that I suspect that people who make gifts through pre-authorized debit are giving on average about $40 to $50 a week. Imagine the transformation that could take place in your diocese if you were able to aspire and reach this in all of your parishes. Imagine the transformation that could take place if everybody in the church gave this way. Some folks suggest that the church is prehistoric in the way that it solicits gifts to support ministry in the church. I have one example in the Canadian Anglican Church, and that's a church in St. John, New Brunswick, that has a giving kiosk at the entrance of the church where you can go in and swipe your card. And I called them up a couple of years ago and I asked them, do people think this is crass or silly? And the response was, it was seen as a bit of a joke at first, but revenue is up 25% because we have a giving kiosk. And these giving kiosks are becoming more and more common, particularly in the United States and in some evangelical churches. In fact, you can now get this little chip that you put on top of your of a card, and you just slide it through as well. Again, we might think, gee, that's not the way you should be giving in the church. But given the flexibility that we have in the multiple ways in which people can give, why not consider that? We're going more and more away from being a society that uses cash for transactions. Fewer and fewer of us use checks. Many of us don't carry more than $20 in our wallets on any given day. If you take that into consideration as a reality, maybe we need to reflect on a church and the vehicles in which people can use to make gifts to us. And I think pre-authorized giving is just one way in which we can encourage that, but we also know it's a healthy way. It's good theology. We pray about it, we think about it, we make that gift. It's the first fruit, it's not what's left over. And I think it's a very powerful example on what we can do. I also believe that we should be focused very strongly on the idea that we're not relying on rental income to support our parishes. We have a sad reality in the Diocese of Toronto where many years ago we made a decision in many of our parishes to set up daycares in our parishes to fund or to help co-fund what was taking place there. And we've gotten ourselves in trouble as a result of that. A few years ago in Ontario, the provincial government extended all-day kindergarten, which essentially meant that kids who were ages 5 or 6 didn't need preschool anymore, didn't need daycare, and you can imagine the profound impact that had on our parishes. So parishes that would have daycares of 100 kids now had daycares of 65 or 70 kids. And that had a deep impact on the revenue that they were getting from daycares. Our over-reliance on third parties to provide support for us means that if we were to ever lose them, or somehow their services would be not in our parish anymore, we would be putting ourselves in a very difficult situation. And so the more and more we can rely on the people who are actually in our pews to be supporting the ongoing and regular operations of our church, the better position that we're going to be in. We've had churches actually close in the Diocese of Toronto because they lost a tenant. I think we have to be exemplary mentors to the church in what we do beyond what takes place in our church. And as we encourage members of our congregation to be generous to our parishes, we too should be generous to our community as well. And so if we aspire, if we encourage people to become tithers, then we must aspire as a church to be a tither as well. And so we should be tithing 10% of our revenue to programs outside the church. And I just threw in a few examples that I knew were close to the hearts of folks here in New Westminster. And so I stole them from your website. Hope you don't mind.
There'll be a charge for that.
I imagine it would be. We always have newcomers coming to our church, and we need to be orientating them into the life and ministry of our church. You know, the biggest growth, the biggest area of growth that we get in our church isn't from lapsed Anglicans. It's from people who've had no contact with church ever. It's funny, in the Diocese of Toronto, we have 400,000 census Anglicans, 80,000 Anglicans on parish rolls, and 25,000 people showing up on Sunday. So if we were to rely on people who are the census Anglicans to be welcomed into our church, we're not going to be doing too well. The reality is most of the people coming to our churches are what we call the open, they're open to church, but they've had no experience of church ever in their life. And so new member ministry is critical to connect with these people who walk through our doors and are curious about what's taking place here. We have to be a welcoming, seeker-friendly destination. And so another thing that we find with our healthiest parishes is that they have that commitment to new member ministry. And the final best practice has put this on the back burner. We haven't devoted a great deal of time to even inviting people to make a gift to their parish in their will. I told this story on Thursday. I'm going to tell it again. The current secretary to the primate, his name is Paul Feely, and he used to be a parish priest at St. George's Memorial Church in Oshawa. And one year, one week, he had 4 funerals from people who were members of the congregation all their life. They had been involved in all sorts of ministries, wardens, treasurers. They were choristers in the choir, bell ringers, you name it, they were them. And it was a severe loss and a very heavy blow to him because he had to do these funerals all in 1 week. And 6 months later, I asked him about any possible outcomes or legacy gifts from the parish, and he looked at me and he goes, you know what? There was a woman who passed away in our parish who left $300,000 in her will to the Salvation Army, and she didn't give anything to us. And I asked, well, why do you think that was the case? And he said, we didn't ask. So universities are asking and hospitals are asking. And every charity under the sun these days is talking to people about the idea of making a legacy gift in their will. There's a huge wealth transfer taking place in our country. Over $1 trillion is going to be transferring from one generation to the next in the next 15 years. It is, we would be remiss not to be part of that conversation as well. And I don't say that from a position of crassness, because every generation in the Anglican Church passes from one generation to the next a legacy to help fulfill and continue God's message. Previous generations were generous in their giving to the church, and we need to be inviting others to be doing likewise. Because if you were not able to tithe in life, you can at least tithe in death. So the results that we find in our parishes is that working towards the introduction of these 14 best practices that parishes that endeavor to achieve a percentage income of their parish of 2.5%, of 50% of people involved in giving through pre-authorized debit, involved in new member ministry, putting those seeds in place, preaching about it on a regular basis. It has a profound impact that you will see an immediate response, but a lasting response as well. Because what we want to do is encourage a message that isn't just one you hear for 6 weeks each year, but a message that's weaved through our liturgical experience and our practice as Christians. And so these 14 best practices are something we're certainly moving forward with consistently in the Diocese of Toronto. And as an indicator to you, we have in the diocese 31 parishes that are growing numerically or in terms of revenue growth, 31%. And of those 31%, so 31 transfers to 64 parishes. Of those 64 parishes, 50 of them we can say are intentionally growing and healthy because they've been able to apply these best practices to their experience of church. So we know it works, and that's why we're champions of it. Thanks for your time.